11 minutes away from 7 o'clock, and as promised before the break, we're sitting down to talk about the evaluation of the World Heritage Site in Belize, in particular the Barrier Reef. And joining us for this conversation, we have Fisheries Administrator and National Focal Point for World Heritage, Beverly Wade. And also we have UNESCO World Heritage, representing UNESCO World Heritage Center, the head of Marine Program, Dr. Fanny Duvert.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, when we start talking about World Heritage Sites, let's talk about how, first of all, that became a part of the description for the Barrier Reef and why that is significant in terms of the global picture.
Well, you know, Belizeans are quite proud of our Barrier Reef system, and it's something for us to be proud of. It's very unique. We often refer to it as the largest living barrier reef in this hemisphere. And we globally, we say it's second only to the Great Barrier Reef. But at the end of the day, it is a patrimony that is unique enough and special enough to then be inscribed not only as something nationally but globally. And that is where the designation from UNESCO comes in, where they've recognized the unique attributes of our barrier reef system here in Belize, and that it is something that is worthy of inscription at a global level as a global patrimony for the world. So it's an iconic feature that is now recognized globally as something that should be preserved for generations to come.
And let's get a little bit into that, adding the title of World Heritage Site and what that means globally, because we may have a local perspective and we say it almost flippantly at times. But what does it mean on the global scene?
Well, first of all, as Beverly just said, it is a really very prestigious recognition. It means that you are part globally of a collection of very iconic places that you cannot find anywhere else in the world. So Belize is part of that very prestigious collection of sites. Now, what many people know about World Heritage, but many people do not know what it actually means day to day. And when a site gets inscribed on UNESCO's World Heritage List, at that very moment, the government and collectively all of the nations around the world take the responsibility to actually protect these places. So it means that you get the recognition, but you also take the responsibility to make sure that future generations will continue to enjoy this place, this special place. And so what we do at UNESCO, and partly why we are here, we are basically making sure that the right conservation measures are taken by the countries. If a country needs help, that there is an exchange, that we help that country, that we maybe bring other countries together, that we look at financial resources that might help to protect a particular place. So it's an entire system that comes with it to make sure that those iconic, exceptional places are well protected. So that's why we're here this week on a UNESCO World Heritage mission.
Now, looking back to a few years ago when the heritage site was put on the endangered list, let's look at from UNESCO's side. We know what prompted it on this side, we've been told that, but let's look at the decision and how that is made.
So it's a very thorough decision. It's not a lightweight decision. Bringing a site on the list of World Heritage and Danger is basically meant to as a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to the international community, saying, look, there's a number of things in that site, like for example here the Belize Barrier Reef, that are not going so well, and we see that there are indications that the environment is deteriorating. And so it's meant really to tell the international community, look, we need to take action. We need to help that government in order to address those issues. And so there was a mission, a dedicated mission, came here, went into the field, talked with the various people that are living daily in the place, but also with government officials. And so on that basis, so it's a very scientific approach that we take to that. On that basis, the World Heritage Committee, during its annual meeting then in 2009, decided that it was good to inscribe the site on the World Heritage List endangered. So I can list you some of the key reasons why that was, if you would like to. In the very first place, it's of course the threat of oil development. All around the world, when it comes to World Heritage sites, those are very exceptional places. So the World Heritage Committee has a very straightforward policy that it considers oil exploration within and in the immediate surroundings of World Heritage areas not compatible with the World Heritage status. So that's really one of the things where we are concerned and where we would like to help the government to find a suitable solution, because we of course also understand it's not just environment, it's also sustainability. But then in addition to that, we also have looked at sales and leases of lands within the World Heritage area, and so there we saw also that there is a lot of potential for development, especially mangroves, and that is very crucial to the maintenance and the life basically within the reef. So there are a number of other issues, but those are really the key ones which we need to address and in which we want to help the government.
How is it? Is it because the perception may be that it is really a tool that serves to bring pressure on the government to formulate certain policy? Is that the case? Yes or no? And how does it work to assist the government, if not bring pressure to bear on them?
It's not that we bring pressure. What we really do with World Heritage is we try to help the government in the very first place to identify some of the key things, some of the key challenges that are there. However, at the same time, it also has another component to it. If you, for example, look around the world, there are various World Heritage sites that generate annually billions of dollars, and that comes really from that designation very often, because they market it in a certain way. It is something that is unique. The international community accepts that it is something unique and irreplaceable. So what we also do with World Heritage is we try to inspire a sustainable approach towards marketing your value that you have. And we see in some sites that works brilliantly, and it really brings a fantastic return to the people in the country. And that is part of our mission this week. So partly we're trying to look at that, at the situation also from a socioeconomic perspective. And we feel that there is quite likely a untapped potential here with the Belize Barrier Reef. So that it's part of what we do. It's not just environment, it's really also looking at the socioeconomic potential from a World Heritage site.
Now, I want to bring it back over to Bev for a second, because obviously some of the reasons Dr. Fanny just pointed out as to why we were first preliminary placed on the endangered list are still issues that we are discussing today in the national arena. How has the government been facilitating this mission so far, and also addressing these two particular issues?
Well, I think first of all we have to state that the mission is here to work along with government. Yeah. This mission isn't really an evaluation or a reactory mission. It's a mission to now look at helping government with what I would refer to as a roadmap, which is referred to as the draft. No, it's a desired state of conservation report, and that's really meant to be a piece of document that now have resulted from very broad consultations with government and with stakeholders as Dr. Fanny mentioned earlier, what are the key issues, what are the key considerations, And how could we as government, along with UNESCO's assistance, now see how we could move forward with removing Belize's site off this list of properties in danger. And so the government has welcomed the mission, actually, and we're very encouraged by the approach that the World Heritage Center has taken, which is an approach to help us now look at what the solutions could be. We try and view this mission as a very positive and constructive mission to see what exactly are the solutions and how do we move forward. And I think it's timely to answer your question, because we are still, as you said, very much in discussion with some of the key issues, especially oil. And I think that makes it very timely, because it's within those discussions that we are engaging government, which is an important stakeholder, and we're engaging stakeholders to see what could well be a feasible path or a good direction for us to go. So I think that there are great opportunities here for us nationally and at the global level, at the World Heritage, at UNESCO's level, to now work with Belize to put something in place that will help us to maintain the integrity of our systems, but at the same time look very closely at the long-term sustainable development of a property, which is very much at the center of a lot of our economic potential or economic activities, and also, as Dr. Fanny mentioned earlier, could well be at a higher level in terms of the social economic dimension in Belize.
Because I'm trying to remember the word that you used, the evaluation at this point, or to say exactly, to chart a way forward. How do you build that picture and let it be an honest, independent evaluation of where we are, in an effort to really assist and to maintain that status?
Well, we're not starting from nothing. We've been here in 2008. We've been here in 2013 on a reactive monitoring mission, so it's our third time here in Belize. So we're looking back at what has been said in the past, and I think some of the critical conservation challenges, they have been the same as some of them are still today, and some of them are also addressed. There's some really good things happening in Belize Barrier Reef that at a world scale can actually be almost a gold standard, to say so. So there are a number of really good things, but some of the challenges are still there. So what is very important to us is that we not just talk with government officials. It's very important that we actually are on the ground, go to the reef as we did yesterday, but that we also talk to the people that are directly dependent on these resources, that live with them day to day. So what we do, the way we really form an honest picture is by talking to as many people as possible. We're also, of course, talking to the NGOs to understand their positions, how they are working, but that allows us to not sit back in Paris and just do it on our desk. No, we really want to be here, and we really want to understand from the people themselves what they feel are the critical issues. And so all of that we bring together, and at the end of the week of this mission, the plan is basically to set a number of very specific targets, things that really need to be protected, and that's something that we share with the government in order to see whether this is acceptable. If it's not acceptable, we need to go back to the drawing table, and we need to find a solution. So we again, it's not we're coming in and we're telling everybody what to do. This is not how UNESCO works at all. It is really a form of constructive discussion on trying to bring the positions together and make sure that the government basically has both, because you can have a fantastic thriving reef while at the same time still move forward on the priorities in your country. We see this anywhere else in many places around the world, so there's no reason why Belize could not do that. So that's our role, and that's what we do.
Now, it would be interesting to note what the different stakeholders are saying, or what their vision of the maintenance of this site is, specifically since you've spoken to people like the fishermen who have a vested interest in these systems. Tourism stakeholders as well also have a vested interest. We know the government policies try to be aligned with that, but what are you hearing from the stakeholders? Are they willing to assist in ensuring that we move more towards sustainable development and maintaining our status of a World Heritage Site?
I think very much so. I think the discussions that we have had so far, I think it's very clear that the people that are living with these resources want to see that protected. And in fact, the understanding that we had from this week, I think even people that are more in the field of development, I think even there is a very big willingness to actually come to a solution that works on both ends, both for the environment but also for economic and social development. I think that willingness is very much there. And I think the situation is also such that a lot of the people on the ground feel that there is actually very good legislation drafted, but it hasn't come really to a point that some of that critical legislation has passed. So it's also our role to try to understand why that is and try to see whether there are bottlenecks that we can solve together in order to move forward. So my feeling very much from this mission this week is that the willingness is really there, both with the stakeholders and the people that are living with it, as well as in the government. I think it's really a matter of trying to bring some of the positions together and move forward constructively. That's really my feeling from this week.
Now, last week we had a very interesting project, Fragments of Hope, at Laughing Bird Key, talking about actually planting coral. When you look at initiatives and how do they factor into the total picture when you talk about the preservation of the title as World Heritage, and you have individual efforts at one end that may be groundbreaking, so to speak, and actually working to improve what we have, and then in other areas you also have efforts that may undermine the very thing that we claim.
That's exactly what this process is about. It's to identify those very efforts that we think at the end of the day could contribute significantly to maintaining the integrity of the system. So, and in whatever plan that we put forward, you would want to highlight those, to look at how you could strengthen them, how you're able to build on them. But at the same time, we're here to look at the issues too. And we're, as Dr. Fanny said, to now look at them constructively and to highlight how we can mitigate some of these measures, what are needed for us to now ensure that the measures are discussed, that we put in actions in place so that we could now start and address them to ensure that at the end of the day they're not to the detriment of the Belize Barrier Reef. And I'll speak as government here. Government has a vested interest in maintaining the integrity of our barrier reef. Our tourism is very much dependent on our natural resources here in Belize. Our fishing industry is very much dependent on a functional, robust and healthy system. And I think there's no other choice for government but to put into place management and measures that will ensure that there's functionality at the end of the day. So it is taking a very comprehensive look at everything that is happening on the ground. And as I said, to look at initiatives like Fragments of Hope, to see, is this something that we would want to now replicate, to expand, and then also to look at, as you said, the other end of the spectrum and say, how can we work with those people to now ensure that we understand why they're doing it, first of all, because that's a big part of the mission, as Dr. Fanny said, is to understand the objectives really of the activities that we really see as a threat to the barrier reef system, and to see how we could now work with those people and how we could put a framework in place that will enable those people to work within and ensure that at the end of the day we maintain this very important system.
Now, Dr. Fanny, one of the first points you made when we spoke about the barrier reef being put on the endangered list was the threat environmental threat that comes with oil exploration. If we're looking at what is happening today, there is a very robust conversation taking place with the new proposed exploration zones that do include the barrier reef system. My question to you is this: is there a space, a medium ground, where there can be the maintenance of this very prestigious status and allow for oil exploration in the very same area?
Well, I think there is. I think there is, because the way we are looking at oil exploration is not, I mean, it's very specific. We're not here to ban everything related to oil in a country. This is not our task. It's not our role. What we're looking at is specifically in the very first place the actual reef, which at the end of the day is 10% of the entire Belizean waters. What is important for us is that there is no oil drilling within a World Heritage Sites, and I think everybody we're talking about actually agrees with that. I think I have not heard anybody that doesn't agree with that. In addition to that, it's important for us that oil is not happening in areas, if there would be a spill, that it would immediately impact those areas. And at that moment, you're looking at the way that the currents go, you look at the way that the ecosystem functions, but we're looking at that in a very thoughtful way, and I think that's perhaps a discussion that up till now we haven't really had, and I think it's very important to have that discussion and to see where there really is a middle ground where it works both from a World Heritage perspective, and again our approach is very thoughtful for that, but at the same time doesn't jeopardize the priorities that there might be in a country, because again it is not the role of UNESCO to do so. So my answer to your question is very much yes, there is definitely room for a middle ground.
And then I bring it back over to Beverly for the very same reason that it is in a draft stage. How much of the conversation, the constructive conversation, as you termed it, with UNESCO, specifically in maintaining or removing ourselves from the endangered list, is going to be reported to the Department of Petroleum?
Well, I could tell you that the mission has been exposed to that draft, like all of us, both governmental and non-governmental stakeholders, and we've had very constructive discussions with that ministry. And as a matter of fact, I think it's based on those discussions that we've been very much encouraged that there is the opportunity to have this dialogue, to now look at the considerations that should be looked at when it comes to the ecological dimension that comes along with any oil exploration in the offshore environment, and no doors have been shut. As a matter of fact, a lot of doors have been opened to now have that dialogue and to know very seriously to hear, as Dr. Fanny say, what are the considerations from a UNESCO perspective, but not only from a UNESCO perspective, nationally, what do we want to see, take for instance from a fisheries perspective, when we're looking at any zonation that is looking at potential offshore oil exploration. And I'm sure the other sectors who have a stake in our marine environment would also have input into that. So I think the important thing is to highlight that what has come out of the the Department of Petroleum is a draft, it's a working draft, and my understanding from the mission and also as a stakeholder that has been exposed to it is that it is now time for us to provide input into that. And I think we should take advantage of that opportunity which now exists to see how we could have the best prescription for Belize, as Dr. Fanny said, in terms of our priorities, in terms of oil development, and also in terms of the other sectorial considerations that has to take place.
So the question that then follows for me is, when you start off with the word, just the name World Heritage Site, and then you go World Heritage Site on the endangered list, there is a movement that, you know, you look at that and then you start worrying if you're going to be removed from the list. So how do you allay those fears in terms of the public consideration? Because when you hear that there's an evaluation, it might, for some people, be sirens blaring that we're doing something, and then the conversation that is going on about oil exploration and all of that. How do you, independently of course, allay those kinds of fears that this is not a process that necessarily means that you're sliding down a slippery slope to being removed from the list?
Well, the World Heritage Committee does have that mechanism, so it does exist and it is embedded in the World Heritage Convention that if a site really loses its values, that it loses its what we call outstanding universal value for which it is inscribed in the first place. If it loses that it could be removed from the World Heritage list, and that has happened in the past. There, for example, in Germany, Dresden, the old town was removed from the World Heritage list a number of years ago. So it has happened, but it's a very extreme situation. I mean, it really would mean that the value for which you are inscribed in the first place has been irrevocably lost. So we're trying to avoid that by all means. I mean, it is our role to make sure that, in the very first place, to make sure that a site doesn't go on the list in danger. Already there, we're at a moment right before that happens where we're trying to really discuss with the government how it could be avoided. Now, things sometimes go fast, and at that moment we are a bit put in front of a situation where we have to make that wake-up call. Now, removing a site from the list in danger is very extreme. Nobody really wants that at all. So we will put everything we possibly can into developing a very constructive conversation, not just this week. This week is to try to bring together the targets, but the discussion that continues until we can find the right way and achieve the right things in order to remove it back from the danger list and have Belize be regarded back as part of those places that are truly exceptional and in which there is a system robust enough to keep it great. So that's really what we're here for.
The other part of the question that we've been discussing local threats, but we also know that globally there are issues such as global warming, which leads to coral bleaching and so many other things. So how do those global threats that we have no direct control over, how do those factor into that designation?
That is very correct, and that's not unique just to the Belize Barrier Reef. We had a big dossier running in Australia's Great Barrier Reef as well, where we have been looking very closely. Climate change is certainly a key factor when it comes to reef systems on the World Heritage List and elsewhere. The way we approach that, we understand that a country on its own cannot necessarily do a whole lot about that. But the way we approach it is that when you look at climate change, you're talking about resilience of a reef, and you're talking about resilience in terms of being able to bounce back if a real big bleaching event happens. And so what you really can do at a site level and as a country is reduce to the maximum possible the other threats that are there. It's like our human body, right? It is the same. If you have already various things and you're already eating unhealthy and then you get a disease, you don't bounce back. So it's the same in an ecosystem. So the way we are approaching climate change is really to try at a country level and at a site level to reduce as much as possible the other factors that are deteriorating the system in order to have a bigger resilience in the face of climate change. That's the way we approach that at World Heritage.
Now,
if you were to say some of the other threats that you have been able to identify, you also mentioned that we have made great strides in particular areas. So let's start there. Let's start off with some of the achievements that we have made, and then look at some of the real threats that you have also been able to identify.
Well, with the positive,
yeah.
We always like to start with the positive. I think it is very true that Belize definitely in a number of areas is setting a leadership role. If, for example, if you look at the latest plans that are there for the integrated coastal zone management plans, which basically are plans that look across, it's not just World Heritage, they look across all the Belizean waters, but are trying to develop what is called an informed management, meaning that you would put certain activities in certain places in the marine environment, but you would do that from the perspective of trying to achieve both socioeconomic goals and environmental goals. Now, that plan is really, at a world scale, probably the best plan in that kind of field that I have ever seen. It is a plan that is very well thought through. It's a plan that is very much embedded into a participatory approach on how you actually involve the communities in order to develop that. So that is one of the examples where a plan really, you can say, as we say in French, chapeau. It's true. It's definitely something that you can illustrate. Beverly can certainly talk more in detail about the fisheries. But when it comes to fisheries, Belize is certainly a country. There's certainly room for improvement, that's sure. We've been hearing a number of things, but it is also such that it is definitely a system that is well thought through. Now, certainly with the intention to raise the no-take zones from 3% to 10%, there is a thoughtful approach to all of that. So also that is not necessarily something you see in a lot of countries already as developed as it is here. So yes, certainly there are a number of things that are excellent, I would say.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to say? We know the coastal zone plan was something that had been, we had conversations when the consultations were taking place. I guess my question to you, Beverly, would be if these examples are pointed out as moving in the right direction. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot with development plans where a lot of effort and thought and preparation are put into it, but they aren't necessarily enforced or adhered to properly. What's the buy-in from the rest of government and the different departments at this point?
Well, I think we're at the stage where we've almost heard an almost consensus from stakeholders and from government, whether you're looking at it from a development and investment perspective to whether you're looking at it from a natural resource management perspective, that there is a need to now look at formally mainstreaming a lot of these plans and legislation. And so that again is what this, we're hoping this mission will now catalyze at the end of the day to now highlight that there are some very, very important low-hanging fruits which are there. And that if we, it doesn't take much for us because all the groundwork have been done on a lot of these things. It doesn't take much. And what is encouraging for us is that we're very much hearing the desire to collaborate and to look at how we can mainstream these plans across sectors, across ministries. And I could tell you that if we are successful at that, which we could do in a short to medium term, that it would help us now establish adequate or close to an adequate framework that will help us address some of the potential threats that would now be existent in the World Heritage Site, especially as it relates to development.
Opportunities that exist from being taken off the endangered list.
Well, as I said, I think the Belize Barrier Reef, and especially its World Heritage designation, I think there's a lot of untapped potential here. We've been seeing in various other countries, and I think that's a trend that is moving forward. When it comes, for example, to ecotourism, when it comes to marketing something that is truly unique, not just the environment, but also the people that are living with it, all of that you see in various other countries, that this is an incredible added value in terms of bringing substantial and sustainable revenues to a country. So I do really believe strongly that there is an untapped potential here for the country, and I think that's one of the opportunities, of course, if you are listed as a World Heritage Site. I think in addition to that, I think Belize has all potential to be a champion in the world when it comes to the conservation of an exceptional place. Belize Barrier Reef is the second largest reef in the world. It does mean a lot. There's a lot of things happening in a lot of other reef systems all around the world. I do believe that there is certainly all potential for Belize and the people of Belize to take a leadership role in showing how it actually can be done and how it should be done. So that's those are opportunities that I see.
So what happens now? Do you return and compile a report with a recommendation as to what should be done?
No, this is not going to be a lengthy report. I mean, obviously we do have to write something down, but that's not the objective of the mission. So we are right now compiling the information, and we want to get to a very short set of targets, basically. So what we need to develop is what we officially call in our language a desired state of conservation. But what it in essence is, it's a set of targets, meaning a set of targets on what actually should be protected, what should be done in the site, and we attach a number of actions to that, and what you could do. It's flexible. If you have other means to reach that target, that's up to the country, but we're trying to, with all the information we have, to summarize in some way or another how you could reach those targets, and there is a timeline attached to that. I think part of what the kind of missions that we do, which we do very regularly, what it actually also does is that, since we're talking to a large number of people, both governments, both people that are from other parts of civil society, we're kind of also seeing a lot of synergies, and I think that's definitely the case here. I think there are various departments, even within the government, that I hear similar things from. They come from a different angle, but you definitely can put two things together and make something work. And so that's part of what we're trying to understand, how some of the synergies that are there. And so at the end of the week, we're basically going to come up with a table to put it really brief. And that's what we suggest to the government. It's up to the government to accept it or not. And then it gets presented to the World Heritage Committee through their annual report. It gets adopted, and then after that, the plan is really to work together to make it work and to fulfill it. So our task is not done by the end of the week. It's it is our role to then work together over the next year, perhaps the next 2 years, the shortest time frame possible, in order to get Belize back off the danger list.
I guess the final question for me is just the idea of, we've been grappling with the quantifying of what it means in terms of financial resources for the country going into the future, projecting that and making that become a part of the conversation for John and Jane public. Is that something that the UNESCO does with and attaches in terms of also the addition of the title of World Heritage and what that brings to that value as well.
I think that's probably something where we can also improve at World Heritage. I think we are at a time right now in our own organization where we perhaps have not necessarily brought that expertise of how you actually can quantify and capitalize in some ways. I don't like to use that word, but in some ways it is, because it is a designation that is exceptional. It is a designation that says that you have something unique. It comes with the responsibility to protect it. But what we more and more see in other countries is that actually there is a way, when you do it sustainably, to bring a real return to the country and the people in that country. As it started out early on, we have examples where the country generates annually billions of dollars from their World Heritage area. But what it requires a vision. It does require a vision of where you want to go into the future. It requires then also the buy-in of, for example, the tourism industry, but also the fisheries, everybody. You need to have a vision where it is that you want to go, and you need to get that buy-in in order to get there. And we do see that in various countries. That's really what is happening today. And I think that's where maybe we can improve by bringing those examples to other countries and say, look, that's what's happening in so-and-so place. This is maybe an opportunity for you to think differently about it. And I think that would really bring a substantial change when more people in their day-to-day lives see the benefit. It's there in a lot of other places. I don't think really, I think it could be better here in Belize Barrier Reef. And I think it's partly our task to bring that message.
Well, ladies, we want to thank you for joining us for this conversation this morning. And of course, we look forward to see what the recommendations will be following this mission. Because I think it is important to all Belizeans. It's just being able to figure out how we can ensure that we are removed from the danger list. Right? Thank you once again. We're going to go ahead.
Thank you for having us too.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation about the environment, and we'll be joined by a representative from Oceania and one from the Belize Audubon Society to talk about the exploration guidelines and exactly what we're going to do there. We'll be right back after these messages.